Hey guys, so I just spent all day watching the entirety of the final season of Lock and Key, and it was okay. It didn't blow me away like the first two seasons. You know, a lot more action packed than the other two. This was kind of like it's kind of like symbolic almost because the whole point it seems of this season, especially at the end, is moving on without the keys and so the keys really weren't used that much in this season. Um, so, but I'm on Netflix right now, and just because I'm horrible, I mean, I just watched it, but since I've been watching it all day, and like the first episode I was watching earlier on, uh, yeah, I'm gonna try to just kind of give a little rundown of what happened and stuff like that in each episode and my thoughts and um, if you haven't seen it yet, it's out on Netflix, so if you've seen the first two seasons, I recommend watching it so that way you're kind of, you know. So let's see, the Snow Globe. The Snow Globe. So the very first episode where we see the snow globe, we see like these two women, and they're trying to, you know, they're like a little, trying to smack something, and turns out it's a snow globe, and it falls off, and it gets Nina's attention, and they eventually find the key for it inside the freezer. Bodhi's like opens up this little inside the freezer and he looks around and he finds the snow key for it. And nothing special about this one apart from it brings you like inside the snow globe, which is weird. Um, but then he gets stuck outside, so he almost freezes to death. Um, in the meantime, the two girls who were in there escape, and they're kind of like working for Gideon, and there is pretty badass moment for Nina, who's the mother. She like lures one of them upstairs. She like puts the mirror key into the mirror, and the other one is about to like get the key, but then she looks at her reflection, becomes so entranced by her reflection, because like her reflection is like holding an axe or a sledgehammer or something like that. But it's kind of like this. So, as she's being distracted, Nina comes in, pushes her into the mirror, and everything. And but as soon as she looks back up, Nina's reflection is doing the same thing, and she's like, "I'm not falling for that twice." Because in like the first few episodes of the first season, that's what happens. She gets stuck in the mirror world, and then Tyler has to go in there after her. But she's like, "I'm not falling for that twice." Um, and then the other one gets thrown in there. So these two demon girls pretty much get taken care of. Um, Then the second episode, Duncan, their uncle, is getting married, and the first thing, so Bodhi finds the time key inside the grandfather clock on one of the hands, and it's really cool. He opens it up, and like, there's a bunch of Roman numerals, and you can kind of flip things around, and like the very last one is like time, as in like how long you want to be there. Um, so he starts playing around with it, and I'm like, seriously, Bodhi, you have a wedding and to go to, and you're flipping around and fucking around with time. Come on, kid. But he goes back to the colonial era, and he gets to meet Benjamin Locke, who is the one who created all the keys. um and he sees them with the Harlequin key, which is uh compatible with this chest, and he locks it in there, and whatever you put in this chest and you lock with a Harlequin key, nothing can get it. Um, it's protected by magic. So power tools, you name it. In the like the second to last episode, I think, Bodhi and Nina bring the fucking box outside and they set the thing on fire, and just out of nowhere, a small thing of rain right above the fucking box appears. It just starts raining on it. They've got like this freaking uh um fire extinguisher, and But no, they don't need it because a little thing of rain appears above the friggin' box and just puts it out that way. Um, and then he takes his friend to the Tom, his little girlfriend, to back in time as well. And it's to the time where his dad was a kid, or not a kid, but a teenager. And just as soon as his dad's about to come in, because he's all excited, like, "Oh, I'm gonna get to see my dad." Just as about his dad's about to come in, the time runs out and they get sent back to the future. The third time, uh, well, but so after that, um, the wedding happens and all that great stuff, and um, which we'll call it, Gideon and his goons show up and they're looking for the keys and all that great stuff, and um, but then the episode 3, we find out what happened to Eden. So in the end of season 2, we see Gideon push Eden down to the well, and we're like, oh, she's a demon. Surely she survived that. No, she died. She flat out dead. Like we see her, she's frozen. She's dead, and so her Kinsey and her friends give her quite a memorable send off. They toss her off a fucking cliff into the water. I mean, they say a few words for her. I'm like, they've got her in a wheelbarrow, and they say a few words for her, and sing a little song, in her memory, and then they just off the cliff. You see her sink down into the water, and memorable send off. Um, it's stupid though. I think this is also the episode. Bodhi goes backwards in time again, and he gets to the moment where they're being under attack. Gabe's in the house, and he sees him. Bodhi sees himself wrapped in chains because this is when Gabe was, captured him. And but Bodhi comes in like, "Oh no, you don't want to. You guys don't have to be worried. We win. I'm from the future. I know how everything happens." And they're like, How is this possible?" It's like, "Oh, I found a new key and this and that." And Gabe's like, "A new key?" He gets more curious about it, and then he kind of does the, under his chin to turn him back into dodge, and well, I'm gonna take it then. So she freaking chases him, and just as time runs out, she's grabbing onto him. So because she's grabbing onto him as he's going back, she goes with him. So that's how Dodge was actually able to come back. Um, but they do a fake out at first because when we see him come back, Bodhi's there by himself. Um, but when I saw it, I was like, no, we know you have to be holding. If something gets brought back, it's because you're holding on to it. Um, but then Dodge comes in from the other room. I'm like, oh gee, what a big surprise. He gets chased, and he's got the skull key for the door, the black door. Uh, they both go outside and become ghosts, but then Dodge decides, hey, I've got a better idea. She goes back inside and goes into Bodhi's body. And then she, poof, closes the fucking door on him. And then Bodhi dies forever, and that's the end of Bodhi. I'm kidding. That's not really the end of Bodhi. Um, but at first they think, because obviously he's acting stranger, and they think, oh, maybe it's puberty, maybe it's the fact that Nina is dating his friend's dad. So they think it's just a number of things. Um, but we know that it's actually because Dodge has taken control of Bodhi's body, and Bodhi, or Dodge rather, stuffed her own body, Dodge's body, under Bodhi's bed. Um, it's really weird, but it's like the first when we first see him again, he's like downstairs and he's taking like this, he's eating bacon and he like takes all of it. And then I can't remember who comes out with a big old fucking stack of pancakes, and he like takes them all, and Kinsey's like, save some for the rest of us, and he takes one, he just like flops it over to her side. I'm like, man, demons know how to eat. I'll give them that. They have a voracious appetite because they just like nom nom nom. Um, deep episode 4, not too much happens. I think the biggest part is that Dodge and Gideon kind of form an alliance. Um, Dodge is not nearly as powerful as we thought she was. This guy, she, I think one in the later episodes, Dodge kind of says like the demon that's possessed, that they're fighting is basically a god among demons. That he's just that strong that, you know, so she really doesn't have a choice but to form a partnership with him. It's either that or die. Um, just like Eden. So not a whole bunch of stuff happens. Um, oh yeah, Tyler has that girlfriend. He moves, and like the first episode, we see him with a girl that he's like does construction and stuff like that. And there's a girl there who works with him, and it really doesn't go anywhere for the most part. You see her in the first episode, and she kind of comes in later on, but nothing too much. But I think from episode 4, the biggest part is the alliance between Gideon and Dodge. Episode 5, Gideon and his henchmen go to the house to get the rest of the keys, and it's pretty interesting because they kind of finally figure out what's going on with Bodhi. They finally figure out that, oh hey, wait, Dodge's body is up there. When we found Bodhi, he had the skull key. What if Dodge possessed his body instead? That means Bodhi's outside still as a ghost. And he's able to make himself known. He can like freeze stuff in the house and stuff like that. But the little battle happens inside the house, and um, they kind of decide that they have to form an alliance with Dodge because, like I said, Dodge didn't have a choice. Um, Gideon wanted her to get the keys, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll get them for you." And she knows where they are, but she's like, "Have you found them yet?" She's like, "No." So she flat out lies to him because what she wants and he wants are two totally different things. He wants to like utterly destroy everything. He wants to like merge both worlds together, but she Dodge likes the world as it is. She just wants to rule over it. So their goals are completely different, and she does prove to be an ally. She doesn't stab him in the back or anything. She legitimately helps. They use the angel key, I think it's called, where it's like this harness, and you got angel wings. So Dodge, still in Bodhi's body, takes one of the goons and brings them to the well, and they disappear because they can't because they're echoes, and they left the well by going out through a back door that was created by the anywhere key. So going back through the front, since they're echoes, they're just instantly evaporated, disintegrated. Um, but it was cool to see Dodge actually stick to what she said. It's like, yeah, I don't want this world to be destroyed. I like the world as it is. Um, but they get thwarted, of course. Um, in the last few episodes, it's just them trying to, um, stop him from getting the last key because there's a one last key that they don't know about. And it's actually kind of a cool key. So basically, you like draw something with the key, and whatever you draw comes to life. So they drew. They were being chased by Gideon, so they stopped, and Kinsey drew a bike on the ground, and it turned into a fucking motorcycle. It just kind of like rose up, and it was a motorcycle, and had two helmets on it already, and they got away that way. They went into a back alley, and it was completely blocked off from everything. They couldn't escape, so Tyler had the idea of drawing a door, and then once they were on the other side, he drew a big old, Locke To but it didn't really matter. Gideon just fucking kicked the door and being a demon and all. Um, but they try to uh get the last key, which is in um what's his name? Wow. Gordy Shaw. Yeah, Gordy. He was one of those guys that hung around with um the kid's dad and stuff like that. So they hid it in his mind. So they had to go into his mind to get it, but before they had a chance to, Gideon stabbed him. So as they're inside, they have to hurry because he's slowly dying. And it's really cool when he actually does start to die, everything starts to look like it's starting to rot. Like the inside of his mind is like a theater, but you see the walls and everything start to drip blood and start to rot because he's dying. His mind is shutting down. So all his memories and all the entire mind space is being rotted away. Um, Sam's there, by the way. Sam comes back somehow. Uh, and he takes over the body of one of Gideon's minions. But of course, uh, they find the key inside a piano, and Sam's like, "Yeah, yeah, just go. I'll catch up with you." And blah blah blah. And we're like, you're not catching up. You're gonna die in there. And sure enough, he does. Gideon takes the piano, flips it on top of Sam. Gideon escapes, and Sam's kind of laying under this fucking piano. And yeah, Gordy dies, and so Sam is trapped in the mind of a dying man, and Gordy dies. So Sam is dead as well. He just can't catch a break. He's convinced by Dodge to kill the kid's father, Rundle. He gets sent to prison. He's busted out by Dodge with the fire key or the flame key. Uh, he goes back to the Locke house or the key house and tries to get the stuff from them. Gets stabbed by Dodge. As he's trying to escape the police, he goes through the black door and becomes a ghost. The door closes. He's stuck outside. And then he comes back like, oh yeah, I'll help. And then he gets trapped inside of the mind of a dying man to be trapped there, which means he dies as well. He doesn't catch a break, does he? Um, but the final confrontation happens at the house. And I mean, they get the keys they need, and I think the alpha key, and so they get close enough to stab him, and he gets pushed into the giant hole that was created in their house, the giant demon portal, and that's the end of the demon and Captain Gideon. Uh, and as he goes through, they realize that the portals got smaller because he had some like 2-3 keys with him, and they realize, oh hey, if we want to close this portal up, we need to get rid of the keys. We need to throw the keys in there, which would make sense because the keys were created from that world anyway, from the beings that came out. They would turn into this ore in our world, and that's the keys were forged with that ore. So technically, they do belong to that world, but so they go around, they collect, they get the keys, and they decide that they want to see their dad one last time with the time key. So they go back in time, and I think they give themselves like 10 minutes or so with him, and yeah, and then everything wraps up. Everyone goes on to their own little story, and at the very end, they're all outside, and they're about to go inside, and Bodhi's like, "Wait, do you hear that?" Trying to make it seem like he hears the whispering of keys, because that's how you know where the keys are. You hear them whispering. And he's like, "Can you hear them?" And they're like, "Hear what?" And he's like, "Nothing. There's nothing." It's like, "Oh yeah, that's funny. You don't hear anything anymore." And then they close the door and they zoom in onto the doorknobs, and it says, it's the K and H for key house. But then right before the credits roll, you hear a whisper. And then you're like, okay, are you guys just fucking with us? We know the keys are gone. But was there a key that actually still remained? Because it's the final season. I mean, are you saying there's more keys, but we're never going to get to see them because the show's been finished? But right, like I said, right before the credits, you hear a whisper, and it's just like blink or not pay attention, and you miss it. Um, but it it ended off well enough. I don't like being teased like that, especially when I know there's not going to be a fourth season. Um, I mean, it's a shame because it really is a good show. I've watched every single episode since the beginning. Um, and it's just weird that there was 8 episodes because the other seasons had 10. So I think they probably could have done a little bit more had they just made those 2 extra episodes. You know, it's like, what's the difference? A lot, because each episode is like 40 fucking minutes. So there's a lot of story that could have been told in 2 extra episodes. So I don't know why they didn't just keep it to the 10. But I mean, Gideon as a villain, he was okay. He was pretty menacing at times, but it seemed like, I don't know if it was the actor or it's like this character could not keep his mouth shut. Like, and I don't mean talking, but his mouth was like always open, like, and he always sort of talked like this. He like, not, that's not what he sounded like, but like he didn't really look like he moved his mouth very much when he talked. Um, so I mean, but he was pretty menacing, like I said, at some points. And then there's like the chase scene. So remember that. Keep in mind that this guy is from colonial times, so he's used to horse and buggies and just horses. So he's trying to chase Kinsey and Tyler. They're on the motorcycle, and he's trying to drive a car. So that you're having this serious car chase, but it's made comedic because he's going all fucking over the place because he doesn't know how to drive a car. But him and Ellie, they were when they were going to Gordy's house, Ellie was forced to take him there, and he was talking about, oh yeah, how long have these uh horseless carriages been around? And she's like, oh, about 100 years. He's like, truly fascinating, and is how fast can it go? And he tells her to speed up, and he's got his head out the window like a fucking dog. He's like, I'm like, again, this is the villain, and he's being amused by a car going fast. But then she stops, and he smacks his head, and but then she runs into the woods, and she's like, he's all like, "You didn't seriously think that would work, did you?" In his weird voice. Um, but it's like, yeah, it's the final. It's like the chase scene, and it's made comedic because the guy doesn't know how to drive because he's from a different era. It's like, okay, I'm trying to be threatened by him, but this is just too funny because he's like swerving all over the place and not knowing what to do, and they take a turn, and he's like telling the car to fucking turn for him because he doesn't know what he's doing, and then he ends up flipping the car, blows up, and but yeah, yeah, so he's a pretty good character for the most part. Nothing too major. Just a generic character that wants to take over the world and merge 2 worlds together. Uh all the other characters, I mean, seeing Bodhi's actor act like Dodge was pretty funny. So you have like this ancient demon who is now inhabiting the body of a child. So the actor has to act like that person. So just seeing him walk instead of his normal walk, he's like doing this weird like dodge walk. Um, sass, sassy walk. I mean everyone else is pretty much fine. So I hope that their acting hasn't devolved from the last season. It's still all pretty solid. Um, but it's over, and hopefully they have a petition to make a new season because after that little whisper at the end, I'm like, come on, come on. We know it's not going to end on a happy note. There's going to be some fucking key they didn't know about, and then you hear a whisper at the end, and you're like, fuck you, fuck you. Like in the comic book, there's so many fucking keys. There's like a key for pretty much everything. Like everything has a fucking key. So this series only kind of picked out the more interesting ones, but there are so many. They picked up some interesting ones, and they also condensed a lot of the keys into one key. Like like the identity key, because in the comic there's like the identity key where you can change person into a different person, but then there's like a gender key that changes your sex. But the identity in here, the key did both. You could change yourself into a male or one, male or female, or um. So they just kind of condensed those keys because if you're gonna pick to be someone else, why should you have to strictly stay with your own gender? That'd be stupid. So they condensed two keys. They put two keys together, and there's a few other ones that I forget that they kind of put together into one. But yeah, it was pretty good though. Glad I watched it. Sad it's over, but hopefully they decide that, you know what, 3 seasons just isn't enough. 3 seasons just not enough. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. If you guys have time to watch it, go watch it. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye guys.